Hey, Doug Hooley here with another episode of That's All I Got to Say About That. Now, I got a couple things to say today, but I'm just going to focus on one, try to stay focused here, and that's talking about the release of my new book, Daniel, Way Beyond the Felt Board. I've got a proof copy of it here. See, it says across there you can't sell this because it's a proof copy, and it's going to be out in paperback and hard copy. Hear that? Hard and in the Kindle edition. Now, the Kindle edition, I understand you can go on Amazon.com right now and pre-order the Kindle edition. It'll cost you like $8 and some change. I think the paperback is going to be 19 bucks and some change, and this one I don't remember, probably close to $30, because the print-on-demand people charge a lot and Amazon charges even more, and so you end up charging quite a bit just to try to recover any costs whatsoever, especially when you, like me, typically sell a book or two a month. So anyway, that's all beside the point. So in this book, you notice it's big and looks like almost encyclopedia-like. That's because there's well over 500 pages in here, and it is encyclopedia-like. There's a lot of illustrations to help you conceptualize, photographs, illustrations, and what I've got the best feedback about is these charts that I have in here that tie the book of Daniel together. Like when it talks about a section in the statue of chapter 2, what does that equal up ahead in another chapter, a four-headed leopard? And that is seen later as a one-horned goat who becomes a four-horned goat or ram. So I tie what this right here equals all of this stuff, right? Antiochus Epiphanes back to Alexander the Great, which was essentially the Grecian Empire. All of that is represented there. So anyway, it ties all those kind of things together. I have a lot of tables in here and just a lot of information. So anyway, there's a lot of information in there. I wrote the book. It's called Way Beyond the Felt Board because, like, when you're a little kid going to Sunday school, if you remember back then, or if you never went to Sunday school, let me tell you about it. You'd go and a kindly teacher would have a blue felt board, maybe a green felt board, and you'd have these paper cutout figures that they would stick on there, and they would walk you through a story. Well, typically when you're 5 to 10 years old and they're telling you this felt board story, it's just the very basics. It's, Daniel was a guy who was much esteemed by God, and he prayed effective prayers, and he had a lot of faith, and so when he was thrown in the lion's den, he didn't get eaten, and everybody was happy about that afterwards. And his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't bow down to this big statue, so they get thrown in the fire, and they don't burn, and there's an angel in there, and so that's what you can be like if you're like Daniel. So anyway, so the lessons go. Well, this takes you way beyond the felt board lessons that you're even going to get, way beyond the message in adult Sunday school classes, and that you're going to get listening to a sermon on Sunday morning. If I didn't already say this, I did it to prepare people, to prepare the readers to be able, after you're done reading this book and use it as a resource, to teach the book of Daniel. I think that you will have command and such a knowledge of the book of Daniel that you would be able to teach it yourself. This book is somewhat unique in that I offer a few different theories that you're not going to widely read elsewhere. And it's not because they're crazy theories. I have a criminal justice background. I wasn't a detective, but I had to review all sorts of investigations. I had to conduct investigations, mostly internal investigations and investigations within the corrections system. But as I approached many things, the book of Daniel like an investigator, with in mind to have a clear and accurate picture that I could take into a courtroom and present it and have the jury see and understand what's going on in the book of Daniel. And so when you approach those kind of things, like I read all sorts of ancient documents, I studied the history of ancient Babylon and the Chaldeans and the Persians, etc. I look at all of the other biblical books Jeremiah and Ezekiel that were being written at the exact same time as Daniel was. Those guys all knew each other, if you didn't know that. And so I investigate this stuff. So out of that, when you're really careful about those kind of things, you kind of start seeing these connections. And so, for an example, in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar has this dream. It freaks him out. He calls for all of his magic guys, and nobody can interpret the dream for him, except for Daniel, who not only interprets the dream, he told him what his dream was without having been told. And so Nebuchadnezzar gets that, wow. Daniel told him that I didn't do that. My God did that. So at the end of chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar's like praising God and telling Daniel, surely your God is the real thing and most high God. And so he's like he's got a conversion experience going on. And this is with Nebuchadnezzar as the emperor of his of the Babylonian Empire. He is the high priest of all of the gods. Like Marduk was the main god in the city of Babylon proper. It was like their mascot. But now he believes that Yahweh, Daniel's God, is perhaps a most high God, right? So then what happens immediately in chapter 3? Suddenly Nebuchadnezzar is building a statue, a 90-foot tall statue, 9 feet wide, out on the plains of Dura, southeast of Babylon. And there's all sorts of speculation about what that statue could be, what it could represent. A lot of commentators, theologians think, well, perhaps it's Nebuchadnezzar himself that he's expecting everybody to bow down and worship. Others say, well, it's probably Bel, Marduk. Bel is another name for Marduk, means Lord. I'm going to suggest that if there were no chapter divisions between chapter 2 and chapter 3, you have Nebuchadnezzar praising the God of the Hebrews, Yahweh there, and the next thing we know is he is building a new statue to be bowed down to and worshipped out on the plains of Dura. Now, why out on the plains of Dura instead of in Babylon? Because you don't want to offend your own God within the city of Babylon and all of those who worship it. That would have caused a big ruckus. And so anyway, you can read about that in the book, but that's one example of, you're not going to read that in other commentaries. I read somewhere around 12.5 commentaries on the book of Daniel in the course of researching this book. I always do that at the end of my research to bulletproof what I'm writing, to see what else is out there, to make sure I haven't missed something. And I just didn't really read that anywhere. I did read some Jewish commentaries that came close to that, but not exactly, and just not really exactly at all. So there's that, and then up ahead in chapter 9, verse 27, you've got this thing about the 70 weeks of Daniel, and there's a lot of speculation when the time clock started on those. People don't think that Cyrus the Great, who sent back the Jews from the Babylonian captivity to Jerusalem, is the one that initiated that. I'm gonna flat out tell you that I believe it was Cyrus II who did that, because in the book of Isaiah, it says as much. God spoke through the prophet Isaiah that he would send his anointed one, who he calls by name, King Cyrus, to have Jerusalem and the temple rebuilt. And so if he didn't do it, then that's not accurate information in the book of Isaiah, and I believe it is. So anyway, he's the one that got the time clock started. And there's this thing about that prophecy also where the 70 weeks are divided up into 3 chunks. Nobody has ever been able to offer a satisfactory reason why those 3 different sections are chunked up into 3. Of course, they separated out the last 7 of that 70 weeks because that's the period that is in the future, the famous 70th week of Daniel, when the Great Tribulation takes place and Jesus comes back and all that. But they can never answer, how come this first 49 years is separated out? I got an answer for you. and it's not my truth to have, but anyway, I wrote a book with with what I think in there, and you can get that. So there's unique stuff. There's charts. There's a lot of words. If I didn't say that, a lot of words. So I hope you consider getting that if you're interested in the fate of the world, our future, if we're around during the time when Jesus comes back. A lot of stuff that those who are watchful for our Lord's return need to know. Now, I produced a couple minute long book trailer that I'm going to show you here. That I used a lot of AI in it. Still took a lot of work to put it together. It's not like magic having to produce it. But if you're offended by AI, please look away now because I'm going to play this book trailer. Here we go.
This is not your grandma's Sunday school lesson. This is a commentary on the story of a young man and his 3 friends who had their identities stripped away from them. A young man who rose to the highest levels in the government of his day and became renowned for being the wisest among men, and came to be known as a man much esteemed by God. In this encyclopedic work titled Daniel Way Beyond the Felt Board, author Doug Hooley takes you where past commentaries have left off. Ancient Babylon is revisited. The prayers of Daniel are considered. You will see how God changes the minds of kings, sometimes by closing the mouths of lions. You will glimpse heaven. Answers to mysteries will be offered. Symbols will be defined. Even the ones that describe 4-headed leopards with wings, and lions that have wings that fall off and that stand to their feet like a man. The unseen realm of the spirit will be seen. The future of the world is foretold, and the timing framework behind all of it, the famous 70th week of Daniel, explained. And the truth is told, despite dusty old interpretations and traditions. Daniel, Way Beyond the Felt Board. Available on Amazon.com. Starting Saturday, the 12th of July, 2025. Copies will be available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover.
So that's that. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. My favorite scene in there is where the big lion comes up behind Daniel and he gives him a little hug. If you look close and fast enough, you can see the paw coming around him. But anyway, that's about my new book, Daniel, Way Beyond the Felt Board. Thank you to Mrs. Virginia Franz, a lovely elderly lady when I was a little kid who taught me lessons on that felt board and got me off on the right track. God bless her, and I'm sure that she is having great conversations with our Lord Yeshua even as we speak. So please consider getting it. And for right now, that is all I got to say about that. Thanks.